Hi, I'm Robert Willsmore, and this is Collaboration, a brief introduction to the pros and cons of different methods for forming groups. So I'm only going to talk about a few ways of doing it. There are lots of different ways of doing it. This is just a very brief introduction to just 4 types. But actually, when we go about groups, how often do we think about it? So do you think about how you form your working groups? What are the best ways to do this, and what are the pitfalls of the various types? And you are probably biased, and think about what impact that has. I think that's something that we really do have to think about. So 4 ways in which a group might be formed: leader selects, self-selection, random selection, and psychometric testing. When the leader selects, then the leader imposes the group formation. They choose. Self-selection. Contributors naturally form groups amongst themselves, probably the most typical way in which collaborations are formed. In random selection, people are selected via a random process. And then perhaps the slightly more complex version is psychometric testing. The results of psychometric testing are used to construct a balanced group. So, what are the pros and cons of doing this? If we think about a leader selecting, well, 4, you've got the fact that the group is not responsible for the decisions. That avoids blame, removing possible uncomfortable relationships. You can blame the leader. You're not going to be having that particular issue with other people in the group because it wasn't their fault who was chosen to be in it. And it might be that the leader has more experience in recognising the traits that lead to successful group projects. So having the leader who chooses the group has some benefits. Against that, though, the group does not have control over its constitution. It's not democratic. The leader chose. And of course, the leader may display favouritism and bias. And also for the group, the consequence of such skill of the decision making is taken away. So you're not going to learn that skill, somebody else does it for you. In self-selection, well, in terms of what's for this, the skills are learnt through taking responsibility. The group, the self-selectors, have to negotiate with each other how to bring the group together. And the consequences of making that decision are experience. The group's going to make familiar and comfortable choices, so the group is likely to feel comfortable. The group chooses who they know and who they can work with. You know who you can work with, you know who you feel comfortable with. That's going to make a good working group for you. But what is against this? Well, the dynamic of the group is adversely affected by the hierarchical relationship of choosies and choosers. It might be that there are particular people that are more likely to be the leaders or the choosers than others, and that will create or can create a hierarchy within the group from the start, even in self-selection. You make safe choices rather than making risky choices that might actually be beneficial to the collaborative project. And choices are subjective, they are likes rather than being objective, e.g. balancing of skills. So in other words, it is bias. You've chosen, you've shown favouritism, you've chosen who you like, who you can work with, and you've left out those that you think you can't. And in the leaving out, how have you left them out and why have you left them out, and have you really thought about that? Random selection. So picking names out of a hat. So the group's not responsible for the decision, so there's no one to blame. It's random. So it removes that uncomfortable relationship that might be there for people who have selected the choosees and the choosers. Leader isn't to blame either if there is a leader, because they didn't choose. The experience of dealing with unexpected problems could be a benefit. You don't know who you've got in your group until the group's sort of revealed. That could throw up some really interesting experiences. And of course it removes bias, because you're not selecting, it's random. Against this though, the group does not have control over its constitution, it's random. So the characteristics are not balanced and the group may lack certain skills. It may still be biased. Who are you selecting from in the first place? So, what is the pool from people that you are choosing? And is that already biased in one particular way? Psychometric testing, in particular, say something like Belbin. The Belbin role models is perhaps one of the best known ways in which psychometric tests are used to construct groups that have balanced skills across the whole group. So in doing that, types of contributors are identified and a balanced group formed to maximise chances of success. All skills are available to the collaboration, so you've really made sure the group has got all the different roles, types, skills that's needed for that collaboration to happen. Against this, while individuals can be cast as types, essentialised, constricting positive fluidity of roles, so perhaps very good for identifying different expertises that come in to fill the group. But what about where they might be much more fluid than that? And of course it may cost, so a lot of these psychometric tests are developed by very experienced groups who are likely to kind of charge for their services. But of course they can do that because quite often it results in positive groups that get the job done. So there you go. There are 4 types of ways in which you might form a group. A leader selects, the group self-selects, you can use random selection or psychometric tests. So maybe next time you're forming a group, have a think about how you're forming the group. Okay, thank you.